following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WZWA Network here for the AEW Dynamite review here. I'm your host, Karlifornia Inferi, alongside my esteemed co-host, the one and only Juicy Boy Daniel Johnston. How are you, DJ?
I'm very well, Carl. Another week, another episode of Dynamite.
That's it, bro. And we're going to jump right into it like we usually do. No small talk. We don't want anyone out there knowing that you and I are actually good friends outside of the network. We start the show off with, obviously the intro. We move into Moxley and Kingston. They're opening the show. After a little bit of hype of what's on the show, Moxley and Kingston are making their entrance. They get attacked, DJ, by 2.0 and Daniel Garcia, following up on what happened 2 weeks ago. Get in the ring. They call out Sting. They call out Darby. We're getting this tag team match to start the fucking show. Take it away. What did you think of this? The match, the finish. Take it away, DJ.
Yeah, so I loved the fact that the Young Bucks did not open up this show. So instead, we opened up with Moxley and Kingston entering. I'm not really a big fan of Moxley's Wild Thing theme. The crowd seems to enjoy it, though, so what do I know?
Yeah.
It was a little surprising, actually, to see that they followed up with this 2.0 Daniel Garcia rivalry with Moxley and Kingston. I sort of expected Moxley and Kingston to just move on after that match, but I kind of like the fact that they did a little callback, and then that built some heat for 2.0 going into this tornado tag against Sting and Darby Allin. The match itself, I really liked the way that this thing was put together. There was a lot of old school kind of brawling in the crowd. None of it really looked too fake or too bullshitty. It was just some good solid strikes, and they worked their way through the crowd. They kind of worked their way into this backstage area, which I'm sure you'll have some more to say about. It wasn't very well lit. There was a lot of kind of points in this little backstage / crowd melee where it was difficult to see what was going on. I think Jim Ross even commented that it was like watching wrestling with shadows because it was so dark. But they did eventually get a spotlight up there. Darby Allin took a pretty nice bump into a ceiling bulkhead that was up above them, which was quite spectacular. They eventually worked their way back down to the ring. I enjoyed the pacing of this match. I thought that they did a great job rotating between Darby and Sting so that Sting wouldn't have to be in there for too long at a time. They really accentuated Sting's strengths at this point in his career and hid his weaknesses. Sting took a great bump through a table, popped straight back up. Darby ran interference. Sting ended up hitting a double Scorpion Death Drop on 2.0, and then in a very, very exciting and interesting finish, he stacked 2.0 on top of each other and then applied the Scorpion Deathlock to both men simultaneously, and they were able to execute this finish really well. There was no awkward fumbling around trying to do it. They obviously knew what they were going to do. They'd pre-planned, okay, which way do we roll? How do we make this easier for Sting to get the hold in? And this really came off well. They both tapped in synchronization, which was another nice little sort of more comedic touch. So this really went over well for me. I thought that the Darby bump onto the bottom of the skateboard was just a bit of overkill and a bit stupid. It's not necessary for him to go taking those kind of bumps every single freaking show. We had a little appearance with Eddie Kingston coming back after the beatdown earlier on and taking out Daniel Garcia, which kind of evened the playing field. And overall, I would say that this was a very well-booked segment / match, and it was the right finish, and this went on for just the right amount of time. I wish that other matches would take some cues from whoever agented this one. And I'm going to go ahead and give this a solid B+. I really enjoyed this opening match.
Lovely, bro. Yes, I have to say, from the outset here, WWE was it so fucking hard to figure out what to do with Sting when you had him. You did fucking nothing with him. You did nothing with him. And this is one thing I want to give AEW props for. And you talked about it when we were watching it. They've actually done well with him so far. You know, they haven't blown their load on things too early. They've taken their time, and you know he's had the opportunity now. This is his third outing in the ring, so I was interested to see how he was going to go with the younger guys. But yeah, props to AEW for how they've utilized Sting so far. They open the show, they get attacked. This was good for 2.0 to kind of get a little bit of heat behind them. They call them out. I kind of knew that this might be something that they brought through the crowd. Seems to be like something that Sting does quite a lot to kind of fill in time so he's not in the ring taking too many bumps. I kind of think, and at least in this instance, when they did go backstage and they did, go into the crowd, there were some interesting things that came about, especially Kingston coming back out. That's good. I like that they at least had him get his comeuppance there, and I guess they needed to figure out a way to get Moxley and Kingston out there in front of the crowd, considering they weren't going to actually be performing on the show. So good to get him back out there. The fucking spot where he went through the table, man. Like I was like, I can't fucking believe this guy's taking a table bump. And then for him to no sell it was just perfect. Love the finish. Love the double death lock. This was, as far as I'm concerned, the best thing on the show. The crowd went absolutely crazy. Yes, sometimes we know there's a foregone conclusion, but the way that they went about it was very exciting for me. So we knew who was going to win this, but in this case, it didn't matter as far as I'm concerned. So for me, that's the highlight of the show right out of the gate. We get a Spears and Tully promo backstage after we, find out that Sammy Guevara had proposed to his girlfriend on, I guess it was on Dark. And Spears makes a funny comment about her being on top. Not much to really add there. They're just building a little bit of hype for the match, which is not offensive whatsoever. Let's get to the match, DJ. I guess this feud with the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle rages on. I liked the running plancha right at the beginning of the match. I thought that was spectacular. I loved Tully getting involved and then also getting ejected, and him, kind of trying to whip Aubrey Edwards with his coat. When you have these guys at ringside, I want to see them utilized in this way. I don't want them to be like how I've seen Jake so far, where essentially all he seems to be doing is just standing there, not really doing a whole lot. I like that Tully is always getting involved. It was a good match so far. We went to the commercial break. Taco Bell and Denny's looks fucking good. No wonder America have an issue with people being overweight there, because, man, it was just throughout this show, so much food was being on show for us.
Yeah.
Now here comes where the part where I'm starting to have a problem with the match, DJ. We come back from commercial break. There's a spot on the top rope where they both, I guess, springboard, and they're both holding onto each other on the top rope. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, is Spears going to pull him back? And is he going to go flying through that guardrail that was set up during the commercial break? That's what I thought. I thought this might be a stretcher job or something like that. Guevara might be stretchered out just after he's, proposed to his girlfriend and all that stuff. That's what I was hoping for. Okay. Honestly, I was hoping for a bad ending to a happy situation, because I like that kind of heat. But instead, they do this stupid thing, and I guess Spears flips him off, and then he gets cutted off the top rope, and it's a
Yeah.
2 count. Then not long after that, now he's in control on the second rope. Hits a Death Valley driver from the second rope. 2 count, DJ.
Pronouns, pal.
Then a sixth, there's a guardrail Death Valley driver and a 630 from Guevara on Spears. 2 count. Not a rope break, a 2 count. Spears is bleeding now. I don't know what it was that busted him open. Guevara hits an impressive maneuver, whatever it was, and then finally gets the 3 count, which I found more anticlimactic than anything. It should have already been the finish with the 630. I don't know why they needed to go to the well again. So impressive maneuver, but not the way the match should have ended, in my opinion. And as I already said, whilst I've been tripping over my words this whole review so far, it should have been some sort of situation where it was we needed some heat here. I want something bad to happen. You know, something nice happens with the engagement. I want to see something bad happen. You know, even if Guevara goes up to kiss his partner afterward and Spears is back up, pissed off, blood streaming down his face, hits him in the back with a chair, and then Sammy fucking collides with his girlfriend. She gets concussion or whatever. Now we have a real issue here, which could continue on, and you know we could get a rematch from it. But anyway, DJ, I've said my piece. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I didn't really care that much for this. I'm not a giant Sean Spears fan. However, he did go through a lot of punishment in this match, which I respect. So Sammy kicks out of a top rope Death Valley driver from Sean Spears. Sean takes a top rope Death Valley driver into the guardrail that's been set up across the apron from Sammy. He takes the 630, as you said. He kicks out. There was way too much overkill in this match. I mean, take your pick. There were about 5 different moments where this thing could have and arguably should have finished. But definitely the 630 was the time to finish it. It was an impactful move. It was an impressive move. The crowd got really excited when he hit it, and that would have been the time to call it quits on this match. Secondly, even if you don't do anything terribly dramatic in regards to the engagement thing, Sean Spears still blatantly made a rude comment about Sammy Guevara's soon-to-be wife. You could have at least had him get into her face in the front row, and then she could toss a drink in his face or just something like that to kind of capitalize on that engagement moment that we were just shown from Dark before the match began. The cutter spot off the top rope, like you said, it just seemed like, again, another example of overkill. There was about 2 or 3 seconds between them just standing there looking at each other and them actually executing the move, where Sean Spears arguably could have just shoved Sammy Guevara straight off the top rope and been completely fine.
Why would you do that when you could just do that? I would have done that.
Why did you stand there and allow him to jump up and get that hang time? Even when he jumped up for the cutter, you still had like 1.5 seconds where you could have just shoved him away. You know, it just seemed like he was sitting there waiting for the spot. And again, it's a killer of your suspension of disbelief. I'd probably give this match a D+. And I think that it would have been a much better moment for young Sammy Guevara had this thing just ended on the 630 and been a definitive 1, 2, 3 right then and there, instead of beating a dead horse and going back to that well 5 or 6 extra times.
Yeah.
It was just superfluous.
Yep. Definitely superfluous.
Great word, eh?
Yeah. I'll have to grab my dictionary and check what that means later. Hopefully it's nothing too rude. Christian is backstage. Don interrupts. I'm gonna do 2 at once here, okay? Christian's backstage, Don interrupts. Christian responds with the line he used. So it's 2 weeks in a row now with being the carny piece of shit. And then also after that, we get a Dante Martin promo. DJ, what did you think of these 2 things?
Yeah, so look, to be honest, I'm kind of getting a bit sick of these Don Callis interrupting people backstage and then going on his little spiel. If you have Don Callis on the show once, maybe twice maximum, where he's getting a chance to be a spokesman for Kenny and the Elite, that's good. At the moment, they're having him on there 3, 4, 5 times a show, and it's really being run into the ground for me, and it's starting to get old, you know. He comes in, talks a bunch of shit about how he supposedly broke Christian into the business, and Christian's finally getting his opportunity now that he's the Impact champion, and blah, blah, blah. Christian is a former WWE World Champion. He's a former World Tag Team Champion like 10 times. He's a former IC champion, he's such a decorated wrestler before he's even come here that I just thought that Don came off kind of ignorant as to who Christian actually is. And therefore, he's kind of underselling the magnitude of Christian as a threat to Kenny Omega's title. Christian cut a somewhat decent promo. He finished it off by, as you said, repeating the Carney piece of shit line that he used last week. And here's the thing. Last week when he said that got a chuckle and a little bit of a pop out of us. This week when he said it, it got silence because now it's the law of diminishing returns. Yeah. You have him finishing off with something he said last week, like you're trying to milk the edginess of the line. All you're actually doing now is just retreading things that we've seen last week. Don't start making these things a habit. It's the same thing with the Don Callis appearances. Don't start getting into a thing where you're relying on doing it several times over and over again. Otherwise, you get into that repetition trap that WWE is always in, where every fucking 5 episodes of Raw in a row feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's what they're risking by kind of overdoing the Don Callis thing and overdoing lines like in that promo. The Dante Martin thing, I'm so glad that they actually followed up on this kid because, as we said when we watched his 6-man tag match appearance last week, he's got potential. He felt like he was reading off of a teleprompter. It didn't feel very natural. It felt very wooden, but at least he spat out what they wanted him to get across, and at least it kind of, put an exclamation point on his great showing last week, because it does deserve to be something that's highlighted going forward. He's definitely got some potential, but the promo itself, he's still not really quite there yet.
Yeah, I haven't really got much to add there for either of those things. I just thought the verbiage that was written for Dante needed a writer maybe, because it's just same old shit kind of thing. You got people that aren't used to cutting promos. You probably do need to script every word of theirs, but you need to fucking help them and get them to do it over and over again until it comes across natural.
Yeah, it's like if you script a promo down for these guys while they're still really inexperienced, then it's like you've at least given them a block of granite to start chipping away at and start making their own. You give them nothing when they've got no experience and then tell them, "I'll just make something up." It's not going to come across organic the way that you want it.
DJ, speaking of promos, Dan Lambert comes out. And the first note that I wrote down was, this is a heel promo, baby. This is how you cut a promo in AEW as a heel. I am sick of these heel promos where it's the same shit every time. You're all morons. It's always the same lame shtick. When he starts going on about them being, about cancel culture and PC and all that stuff, I love that, because that is a major problem as far as I'm concerned with some of these types of fans today. Hell of a promo. This guy needs more TV time. He needs to be representing somebody in AEW, to be like an anti-AEW type thing. Out comes Lance Archer. He's going to, once again, try and get one over on Dan Lambert. And as I'd said earlier in the show, what happened to Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page? The next thing you know, that they come out and they attack Archer. And I'm like, okay, cool. So maybe Dan Lambert is going to be representing these guys. That'll be cool for them. That'd be great for them. But what I had a problem with here is, and JR mentioned it, no referees. We have referees when Little Red Velvet comes out and attacks Britt Baker, they're immediately on the scene. But something like this happens, nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found, not at all. And what I hate about this is that's it. That's the end of the segment. They beat him down for a little bit, and as the segment's ending, Archer's already starting to get to his feet. So if he's already starting to get to his feet, and Scorpio and Ethan are right behind him, you would think that maybe Archer might get up and turn around and go after them. They didn't seem concerned that the guy was almost back on his feet. Terribly put together, as far as I'm concerned. You start off really red hot. You know, Dan's there to have a confrontation with Archer, and he gets attacked, and that's how the segment ends. So dry, without real, without a real conclusion. What I think they should have done was maybe Scorpio and Ethan maybe attack him with some sort of weapon, so it's easier for the two smaller guys to get the big guy down. Then drag him into the ring, have those two MMA guys fucking hold on to him, and have Dan Lambert just fucking hit him with a few right hands to the face, you know? Yeah. And exactly. and if the referees aren't going to come out to do anything about it, then fuck, bro. You know, they're beating down on him. There's nothing anyone's going to be able to do about it. There's MMA guys in there. There's Scorpio and Ethan. How about you have Jake come out, and he's got the fucking bag with the snake in there, and you get him to open the bag up. The snake goes into the ring. Lance is okay with snakes because he hangs out with Jake, so he's used to it. The snake rolls in. They all freak out. They all bust out of there because MMA fighter or not, 5 men or not, they're going to be shit scared of a massive snake. Just me. Just me thinking off the top of my head, bro. So anyway, I had a major problem with the way this segment ended. Sorry for the rant. DJ, it's your turn.
Yeah, well, I would have even, if you're going to bring Jake the Snake Roberts out there, you might as well have Dan Lambert stomp on the snake bag and really get. So here's the thing. I echo a lot of the sentiments that you put forth in your little analysis there. This Dan Lambert guy, I don't know where he came from. I don't know what his experience or background or fandom of professional wrestling is like, but he obviously understands the art of actually. His goal in his promos have been to get the audience to dislike him, not to be cool or be funny, which is so much of the problem of Kenny and the Bucks right now. But his promos, he speaks with passion and anger, and it feels like he really believes everything that he's saying, and maybe he does see a kernel of truth in everything that he's saying, and it feels like he's angry about this, and he actually does view this as an opportunity to express these feelings that he has. And he's come in there and he's not disrespecting professional wrestling. He's specifically disrespecting AEW itself. And that kind of fan that's very anti-AEW, if he's going to kind of be a proxy representative for that kind of fan, that is the perfect way to lean into that criticism that the company receives and actually maybe draw those more skeptical fans further into the AEW product, because they can actually root for this kind of anti-hero in Dan Lambert and Top Team USA. Bringing the MMA UFC fighters in there, I felt like that really legitimized Lambert, because previously he was just this middle-aged guy going up against these wrestlers. So that really kind of adds to him as an overall threat. I agree with you. The ending of this went over like a fart in church. It needed something with impact. Whether or not you have Lance Archer come in and maybe one of those MMA fighters hits him with a roundhouse or even goes for a kick and Lance ducks and has to duck out of the ring to actually put over Top Team USA and Dan Lambert a little bit more. Instead, this wound up not really putting either side over. Paige and Scorpio Sky came out on behalf of Dan Lambert and Top Team to help beat down Lance Archer. I guess they needed a couple of workers in there because the MMA fighters probably don't really know what they're doing. So they come back. But again, they didn't really do anything. If Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page had nailed some kind of brutal double team or Lambert had been directing traffic and they'd put Lance Archer through a table or something like that, then I would have been like, okay, this has impact. This conflict has escalated. It's going somewhere now. At the moment, all it did was spin its wheels because they had such an anticlimactic ending to that segment. And the ending really drags it down. Like, I'd give this a C- because of what the ending did. This would have been a solid B+ if they'd ended it with a bit of oomph instead of sort of the flat way that they did end it.
Yeah, it just was a lame ending, and it kind of made me think, what was the whole point of all that? Because we're still in the same place we were beforehand. We don't know, other than Scorpio and Ethan are probably going to be working with Lance going forward. Okay, so next we get Jericho cutting a promo by himself backstage, obviously preemptively nudging the fans to sing the song as he makes his entrance. Not a bad promo, just building hype for that main event match with MJF. Any thoughts?
Not really. I kind of felt like Jericho almost seemed to regress a little bit and was just cutting a very standard Chris Jericho from 2007 type promo. Jericho 2005. And I didn't really get this kind of, excuse me, his promo didn't really do anything to further along the plot thread of Jericho kind of evolving desperately to keep up with the times in the professional wrestling business. That's kind of what he's been doing. He's kind of been a bit of a chameleon, kind of morphing his way through these different incarnations, trying to keep up with everything that AEW throws at him at this point in his career. I felt like I did not get a sense of that. I didn't really get a sense that this was a battered, weathered warrior that's just been through 4 weeks of trials and tribulations, which I thought that was obviously the whole point. It should seem like Jericho is almost being pushed to the point of martyrdom because he's been so badly beaten down and damaged by these previous 4 labors. It should have been like MJF should have been ready to pounce like a shark on Chum, you know what I'm saying? But instead, Jericho kind of presented this sort of lighthearted, kind of like buzzed, energetic kind of vibe that I didn't really feel was congruent with the storyline that they've presented up until now.
Yep, definitely not congruent, bro. I've got nothing else to add there. I muted the episode again, so I don't have to hear Jungle Boy's theme song. It's the Jurassic Express versus the Young Bucks. DJ, I'm going to let you take this one away.
Well, this is very simple. I actually thought this turned out to be a pretty good match, minus Jungle Boy's crossbody plancha to the outside, where Matt Jackson basically stood there and waited for him to do the plancha once again and towards the beginning, and it looked completely contrived and bullshit. Other than that, this was a pretty decent tag team match. It was really helped by the length. It only went for about 10 minutes, and that forced them to keep everything really concise and on track. I do think this match actually had a couple of good false finishes on behalf of Jungle Boy. I think the crowd actually got invested and thought they might win the titles at a couple of points in time, which is really good. Luchasaurus definitely has potential and could be something, but not in the role that they've got him positioned in currently. His strikes come across as weak and phony, like he's afraid to hurt these smaller guys. The lighthearted kind of fun disposition that the gimmick seems to call for doesn't seem to be something that he's very comfortable expressing. He doesn't seem like he has that really happy-go-lucky joviality that seems to be required of the character. And it's really not working for me, but it's not even anything against him as a wrestler. It's just I don't think this is the right role for him. Jungle Boy, on the other hand, I definitely see a future TNT title run like in his trajectory if they keep positioning him as this scrappy underdog who can get the job done and pull victories out of nowhere. This thing did not overstay its welcome. However, I do feel like there was a bit too much gaga at certain points. I'd probably give this match a C-.
Cool, bro. I want to give a shout out to the big dinner box from Pizza Hut. That looks tremendous. And again, I'm not surprised that the United States have problems with people being overweight. I did write for maybe the first half of the match. I thought to myself, at no stage have I been invested in the storytelling of the match, but things kicked into higher gear later on, which made me a bit more interested. Brandon Cutler is really starting to stick in my craw, bro.
And not in the good way. Not in the good way.
Not in the good way, because again, hokey shit. The Jurassic Park reference with the flare to get Luchasaurus's. He's not an actual dinosaur, man.
He's like, a professional athlete. It's a title match.
It's a gimmick. It's a serious title match. Time and place, not there. Okay, it's not funny. It's annoying. And no, it's not heel heat. It's just stupid. No. And it takes you out of the match. Like, take it fucking seriously. The false finishes were getting good near the end. The match ends. The time it was given was good. I'm glad for once they didn't go 20 minutes like they always do. You know, every tag team match on Dynamite needs to be pay-per-view length. There's a beatdown afterward. And again, Cutler with the spray. It's like enough already. And of course, the beatdown ensues. They're getting the shit fucking kicked out of them, and Christian is also getting the shit kicked out of them. No referees, no interruptions. Red Velvet though coming after Britt Baker. We've got several referees coming out there, but no. When it comes to a serious situation like this, again, we're not sticking with one thing or the other. You can't do one thing one time and then not follow up on it every other time there's shit like that happening. I just don't like that shit. So anyway, yeah, like they had to get some heat on Christian and the Jurassic Express, and that's fine. Moving forward, Britt Baker is backstage with Rebel and Jamie Hayter, who comes out and cuts a bit of a promo. Britt talking about how, she needed some backup, and I'm like, why would you need backup with Red Velvet?
Yeah.
Like, I still don't really understand why this is happening, because Britt Baker already has backup. She's already got Rebel there with her. So she's got a problem solver, an insurance policy in Jamie Hayter, and they're warning Red Velvet, and Red Velvet said that red isn't Britt's color, and Britt says that gold isn't her color. That's a good little comeback there. Britt is awesome. But again, I just don't understand the point of all this, why anyone would need backup when, the person that they're feuding with is smaller, nearly the same size as Marco Stunt. So anything to add, DJ?
No, I don't really have a lot to add to it.
Next is a promo video with Matt Hardy talking about the feud with the Best Friends. I wrote, yes. Not really invested in this whatsoever. Hardy already beat them last week. And it made me think, I thought there was this big build that was taking place for weeks with, the Hardy family office feuding with Christian and all that. Like, I thought that was leading to a Hardy Christian match at some point. Yeah. So I'm guessing that we're not going to get that at all, because they've switched into different stories. So that's a shame. But anyway, anything to add there, DJ?
Yeah, I think because Adam Page is on paternity leave right now because he's about to have a child, he was taken out of the all-out title match and replaced by Christian. So that's that. I'm also not really invested in this feud. Matt Hardy's a great talent, but it really seems like they, AEW, for all the criticism of WWE when they finally brought the broken Matt thing into WWE and squandered it, AEW doesn't really seem to know what it's doing with Matt Hardy either, I feel like half the time it's coming across like Matt doesn't even know what he's doing. And yeah, it's nothing against Matt Hardy himself, but this isn't really working for me. It's really going to need to go somewhere in a solid direction before I'm going to start caring about it.
Exactly, bro. Matt Hardy still has some juice left in the tank. I want to see him do some important things in the final years of his career. That match he had with Hangman Page at Revolution, I think, was the best match on the show. I don't care what anyone fucking says. was the best match on that show. And I felt like he was moving the right direction, but he just, with all the people that they got there at the moment, just feels like he hasn't got anyone that we're really interested to see him work with. But anyway, I guess because they pivoted from Christian, they got to think of something on the spot. Tony Schiavone, our boy, is in the ring, calls out his buddy Paul Wight. Paul's cutting a promo, great promo. The crowd are reacting positively to him. Excuse me. We knew it was coming. QT was going to interrupt with the factory. Finally, DJ, I felt like they came up with an angle that was different to go out. You know what I mean? He brought up the hip. They showed pictures of the hip. They showed pictures of his leg and ass on the screen. And I'm glad Show actually fucking paid attention to that when he responded. So I like that they've come up with something different other than just like, I want to fight you and beat you. QT's trying to insult this guy. And then all of a sudden we find out that it's going to be Paul Wight versus QT at All Out. So I'm incredibly excited to see Paul Wight perform in AEW. And I really hope to God that there's no AEW fans out there rolling their eyes or groaning about Paul Wight performing.
This is definitely the best kind of position that QT Marshall could hope for, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I think is important, that one of the best big men that's ever been in professional wrestling at least gets to go out the way he wants to go out and have a few matches in AEW before he hangs up the boots finally. He deserves that opportunity. And not everything needs to be a 5-star match with fucking flips and flopping and flying and all that shit. Sometimes a big man, in a company like this, he deserves the chance to perform. So, DJ, do you have anything else to add there?
Yeah, well, the last time that we saw Big Show actually have a match was the disgraceful post-WrestleMania 36 dark match that he had against Drew McIntyre for Drew's new WWE title, which then he was squashed in about a minute by Drew McIntyre and pinned, and that's the last time we saw him wrestle, which is fucking disgraceful. That was no way to treat a talent like that. But beside the point, he comes out. It was good to see an interruption that didn't immediately occur. They actually let Big Show kind of establish his promo and start talking a bit.
Yeah.
Decent back and forth between Paul Wight and QT Marshall. I liked the passion that Paul Wight displayed. He looked great. He looked like he was excited to be there, and he looked motivated. And that can go a long way into making something that much better on a wrestling program. And the crowd were invested in this match. I think everyone's excited to see Paul Wight. He's a great attraction, one of the best big men ever. And there's nothing but really positive things from me from this match, except QT Marshall still needs to go to charisma school or something like that.
Yeah, it's true. But also I think he did the best here that I've seen him do.
He's improving slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, he did better here. Okay, well, that's all said and done there. Moving on, we get a little promo of Jade Cargill will be taking on Kira Hogan on Rampage. Cool, nothing really to add there. But I will say Jade is impressive looking.
It sucked, that promo did. I'll add that.
She's got some abs on her, that's for sure.
She's in great shape. She looks great, but God, ugh.
Okay, DJ, here comes another thing that I've got a gripe with, and I'm not nitpicking. Mm-hmm. This is legit shit right here, okay? Taz was talking in the ring whilst Tony was backstage with the Elite. Bit of a mix-up there. And one thing I'm getting sick of, DJ, before I get into this other rant that I've got coming, is I'm starting to get really sick of Tony said this, Tony said that, Tony's had enough, Tony. I've had enough of this. We've got word from Tony. I want somebody that can be a figurehead. And I'm not saying a general manager that needs to be on 5-6 segments a show. I'm talking like what JJ Dillon was like in WCW. He would just come out, if necessary, to announce a pay-per-view match or a matchup that's of importance. He would only come out as a member of the championship committee or whatever it was that they called it. That's all that they needed him for. I want a figurehead. I'm sick of Tony Schiavone being like, Tony Khan said this, or Jungle Boy gone. Tony Khan told me that next week we've got a tag team title match. Tony Khan told me we've got a match against you guys at this. Enough with this. There has to be a better way to go about it, as far as
you use one of these veterans that you have working backstage in the office. Have Jerry Lynn or Dean Malenko be a proxy for Tony Khan and the office. Like WWE has Adam Pearce kind of as their representative for the McMahons, because now Vince is never on TV anymore. Adam Pearce does a great job of kind of representing the McMahons as the authority figure, and he doesn't show up fucking 5 segments a day. AEW needs their own Adam Pearce, and I think somebody like a Jerry Lynn or a Dean Malenko or one of the other agents backstage could fill that role.
Absolutely, dude. It's just, it's coming off like kind of, I'm thinking the word juvenile, but there's
coming off silly.
Yeah, it's just like, this is a professional wrestling company. UFC, you have Dana White announcing title fights. In all these other companies, you have a figurehead that is doing it, not someone heard from Tony or heard from someone from Tony that this is what's going to be happening. It's juvenile, and there's no thought behind that. Anyway, here comes the next rant. Taz is in the ring. He's with Hook. They introduced Starks. He's looking good. He's looking like Baby Rock out there. I like it. It's not too much where it's like obvious that he's trying to be like The Rock or anything, but I think he looks pretty cool in his outfits and his sunglasses and shit. No one else is doing it or looking like that these days, so he's got his own thing going on. He calls out Brian Cage. Obviously, it's a setup, and Hobbs is attacking Cage backstage. Cage is down, but then they start brawling. Here's again my gripe. This is how they end the segment. Starks, Taz, Hook run off, and they don't follow them with the camera. Like some major drama is taking place backstage, dude. Major drama. A fight has broken out between these two massive guys, and they're not going to send a cameraman to see how this concludes. And then we don't find out for the rest of the show what fucking happened. You didn't cut back to it after another segment or anything like that. You didn't follow up on it. They didn't follow them, and they didn't follow up. 4 weeks now, bro, and nothing has changed in that story. Not one thing has progressed in the story.
Yeah.
It's enough already. Think. Ask Taz. Yeah. Taz, what do you think we should do this week with this feud to make it different from last week? And I'm sure Taz can come up with something. What do you think, bro? Because it's like, again, it's like the Dan Lambert thing. It ended, and it's like, where are we going with this now?
Okay. So when Taz and Hook actually came out to the ring for this promo, what I thought was going to be like an in-ring segment, I was like, okay, yes, they finally progressed from doing like pre-taped vignettes and backstage promos that they're just airing in the middle of the show. They're actually going to escalate this feud. Ricky Starks comes out, obviously does the setup thing. He wants to show off that his boy Will Hobbs from Team Taz has beaten the crap out of Brian Cage. It goes Ori live on the Titantron because Cage actually starts fighting back. Then all of a sudden, Ricky Starks is like, oh shit, cut this. I've got to go back there and help out Will Hobbs. So immediately you think to yourself, okay, the camera's going to follow that backstage like it's an episode of Cops or something on Jerry Springer, and we're actually going to see this melodrama unfold. Here's the thing. Tony Khan obviously has this philosophy of booking where we'll give a little bit more of a morsel of information about each angle each week, and we'll keep coming back to it and adding a bit more each week. Here's the thing. Certain segments that occur like that, which begin in ring and then escalate and then end up going backstage, those segments are perceived by fans as being live instances of disaster or important events occurring live in real time. You cannot just cut away from this backstage fight that's going on in this setup gone wrong to a different segment as if it was a pre-taped promo. It's happening now. The escalation of this conflict, the conclusion of this incident is occurring now in real time, and the commentators aren't acknowledging it. The production crew is not acknowledging it. Nobody in the office or with any authority is acknowledging it. The security is not acknowledging it. The refereeing staff isn't acknowledging it. The medical staff isn't acknowledging this unforeseen, spontaneous event that's clearly going on backstage, and clearly there's a camera backstage there to capture it. Yet we're cutting away from it and we're pretending like it doesn't exist, and we're probably going to return to it next week in some kind of throwaway segment where Excalibur goes, okay, let's take a look backstage what happened between Brian Cage and Team Taz. Like, no, the urgency of the moment will already be gone next week. Even if you show us the conclusion to this backstage segment in full next week, we're still watching something that already happened last week. We don't know what's going to happen on Rampage in Chicago, whether Punk's going to debut or whether something else huge is going to happen. You can't just go back to this moment in time next week and then expect the sense of urgency to still be on it. You can't expect the heat not to be dead by that time. Wrestling is a business and an entertainment form of what have you done for me lately? You can't just return back to this next week like you didn't just cut away from it right at a crucial moment and leave the fans hanging. There's a difference between leaving the fans wanting more and just completely shitting the bed with your presentation to the point where it kills all the interest you've established with your audience up to that point. It is absolutely ridiculous to think that if Punk debuts on Rampage or Darby has some crazy moment and some big bump, that the fans are still going to give a shit about, what happened backstage with Brian Cage and Will Hobbs next week. This needed to be concluded here and now, not sometime in the future when people's perception of the show is going to be different because the passage of time has occurred in the interim. And now I'm going on a bit of a rant, but tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
We're not nitpicking here, bro. We're not nitpicking it, and I know that there's some fans out there that will defend anything and everything until they're blue in the face. But look, this
people are going to call
correct.
People are going to say that we're nitpicking or that we're armchair quarterbacking, and that of course every fan thinks that they could do it better. I'm not necessarily saying that my alternative of this same segment would turn out to be better. I'm not an experienced booker, but what I am is a fan who has a varied, broad, and experienced taste in professional wrestling. And I have had some experience at the regional level in the local industry. And I am saying that by cutting away from this segment as it was happening, you've essentially killed the heat that it had.
Yeah. And DJ, I just said it. 4 weeks, and it happened again the very next segment. We're brawling backstage, but we're all calm at the interview area. And I also wanted to say this. Last week I complained about I want to see them in different areas of the building, and we finally got that. But
they did a bit of that.
The conclusion was disappointing, right? We're back at the interview spot again with Death Triangle again. There's a Park and Andrade confrontation. They're talking about their match coming out All Out and all this stuff. There's bad acting from the Lucha Brothers. I didn't believe in them, that they were annoyed at Chavo and Andrade. They give him this massive contract to look over, which was comical, that there will be so many terms and conditions for a wrestling match. But 4 weeks, bro, and all we have seen from these guys is standing there at that fucking interview spot. Every fucking week for the last 4 weeks to build this feud. Nothing else except for being in that spot and fucking Park being in his ring gear again, even though he's not performing on the show. Andrade hasn't performed on the show in 4 weeks. What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is this angle? This angle has nothing behind it, bro.
Yeah, nothing. No steam. It's again the same two most consistent issues that we point out in broad strokes every week that we've been reviewing this. They're either overdoing everything and bashing it into the ground, or they have everything completely tonally incorrect and nothing has heat on it as a result of that tonal inconsistency with what they're doing. And it's the same two problems every week. And this issue between Pac and Andrade El Idolo is a microcosm of that issue with the overall company, because it is the worst example of it. And I got to tell you this, the fact that we cut away from that really exciting Team Taz Brian Cage segment back to another one of these Pac and Andrade El Idolo backstage segments did not do this Pac Andrade segment any favors at all, because I was already ticked off that they'd cut away from something I was enjoying. Then not only that, but they cut away from something I was enjoying back to something else that I continually have no interest in, because once again, they're jogging in place. They're not escalating the conflict, and they haven't even really provided a solid foundation for why the conflict exists in the first place. Again, some vague crap from Chavo Jr. about how Phoenix and Pentagon would have a better career if they weren't working for Pac as a boss. Like, what do you mean working as a boss anyway? I don't understand it. Like, they're aligned in a wrestling faction. They're not fucking a company, and Pac is like the boss and they're his salaried employees. They're under contract to AEW, not Pac personally. I just don't understand that whole logic of it. What does their associations backstage have to do with how successful they're going to be in the ring? They obviously can already go in the ring. That's why they're already there. It just doesn't make any logical sense to me that they're trying to build an issue around this where there just is no conceivable issue that exists within the realm of reality. Even within the own internal logic of AEW being a professional sports league, it doesn't make sense. You know, why can't they have one of these segments play out in the ring where there's at least the danger or possibility of physicality occurring between the two teams? And by the way, they announced this tag team tournament that's going to be taking place. So I believe it's going to be culminating at All Out. And Chavo basically mentioned it in about as throwaway a fashion as he possibly could, which only muddied the waters of the issue between Pac and Andrade El Idolo even more. So yeah, this was another thing that rubbed me the wrong way. F for this segment. This segment's getting a fail. I'm not being nice to it this week. It's been 5 weeks now, 4 or 5 weeks, and I've had enough.
Yeah, me too. I want to see Andrade fucking get in the ring and perform. I really do.
Match.
I'm actually
you
like,
can go over to Mexico and wrestle for AAA and have Ric Flair come out there and be your manager, and you're fucking putting the figure 4 on Kenny Omega and shit, but he hasn't done fuck all in AEW yet. It's like a waste of his talent, especially since his English isn't the best. You need to let his in-ring prowess do the talking for him.
Yeah, because I'm just like, man, like for the first time ever, I actually really want to see him wrestle, because I only seen some of the stuff in WWE where I didn't give a shit because there was no character behind it that I could care about. I care about the character. I like the way that he talks. I like the broken English. I like Chavo backing him up. I want to see how they interact with one another and how Chavo works with him during a match of his. You know, yes, people can say, oh, well, you know, they're just building it up, so you want to go watch All Out. I'm already going to watch All Out.
Yeah, sorry, but hang on, let me say this. Sorry, but the character's not that much of a proven commodity that he needs 10 weeks build up before having a match.
Yeah, exactly.
A character like CM Punk, should he actually debut, because that's what's expected widely to happen in the industry. If CM Punk debuts on Rampage this week, CM Punk is a character who you want to build that first match up for a number of weeks, and you want promos and you want an escalation of angles and stuff like that to build heat. For a character that's coming from the WWE, and yes, he's gifted in the ring. Yes, Ric Flair is his future father-in-law. Yes, he's had a storied career in Mexico. But sorry, in front of American nationally televised audiences, he is not a proven draw on a main event level, and you need to get him in the ring, establishing himself as one of the best people on this roster, or else he's just going to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, and I still can't believe he hasn't wrestled Fuego del Sol yet after beating him up 2 weeks ago. Anyway, let's move on from this to something that probably didn't upset us as much. Penelope Ford, versus Thunder Rosa. DJ, I'll let you take this one away. But first, I want to say is I really like Penelope's entrance.
Well, Penelope Ford is obviously very beautiful, very attractive physically. But the thing I like the most about Penelope Ford is her presence. She carries herself as like, I know that I'm a star. I know that I look great. She just has that presence when she's performing where she carries herself like someone important. And that goes a long way to establishing a perception in the fans' eyes that this person is a star. And that all that stuff is totally separate from their in-ring acumen and things like that. It's the it factor that you can't really teach. And I think Penelope Ford has some of that it factor. And it helps that she's obviously stunning to look at as well. In ring, I do not feel like she is ready or developed enough to the point where she should have been in this match. I find myself feeling bad for Thunder Rosa because she's clearly a very skilled and very athletic performer. And going back to when she debuted in the NWA, she keeps constantly being matched up against female performers who just aren't ready yet. They're just not at her caliber. And frequently these matches, I don't know that Thunder Rosa is necessarily ready to be the one to carry a totally green performer through a match, because the match with Julia Hart, this match with Penelope Ford, it had several flubs and botches going on throughout it. And I'm not saying that to be a negative Nelly. I don't think it was fair for either woman to be put into this match because I don't think that Penelope Ford is ready from an in-ring standpoint for a match of this magnitude, especially since you're trying to present Thunder Rosa as a legitimate threat to Britt Baker's women's title. And I think that it does Thunder Rosa no favors presenting her in that light if the women that she's squashing don't really have any wrestling ability and she has to hold herself back and limit herself because these girls obviously aren't necessarily ready to perform at that top level. They're still developing. You need to get some more women in AEW that have more experience that can take the less developed female talents through the paces and help develop and improve their in-ring skills while at the same time providing more viable opponents for the women that are already performing at a top level, such as Thunder Rosa or Britt Baker. And I think you'll agree with most of what I said. So I'm going to give this a D-. I thought that the character work from both ladies was excellent and I had no problem with it, but the in-ring side of it left quite a bit to be desired. Not that it was really either of their fault.
Yeah, and again, I just want to say, as I've said for the last few weeks, the women don't have an angle going on right now. Britt and Red Velvet is a weak angle. There's nothing really going on there.
Britt is carrying that angle. Like Britt is that angle. It's a one-sided angle right now.
Yeah, you could put anyone in Red Velvet's spot for that. And look, I wanted to bring this up because we had a little bit of a debate during our stream this week when we were playing a bit of WCW Revenge with, I think his name's Dark Elite.
Dark Elite Eric.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we had this like little debate about the thing with QT Marshall and Big Show last week with Chris Shivani, and that there was no context to Big Show and QT having a thing, and he said, "Oh, they've been interacting a little bit on Dark the last few months or something like that." And my response was, I don't know that. Not everyone watches the YouTube shows because not everyone's going to sit there through 20 to 26 matches to find these little nuggets of information to have some context to something that happens on Dynamite.
Yeah.
But finally here, this is what I was talking about, Eric. We did get a little bit of context because there was a thing between Penelope and Thunder Rosa on Dark, and they showed that. That's all I'm asking for, man. That's all I'm asking for. Yeah. It took 2 seconds, and they did it during the entrance as well. Yeah. So,
like, it's
props
good
to them for doing it.
It's good that they do continue following plot threads through Dark and Elevation, like that's good. But I just think that they should not assume that the majority of their audience is also sitting down to watch Dark and Elevation on their YouTube. They can use Dark and Elevation to, again, get footage and context on these angles, which they then need to show on Dynamite. You cannot solely rely on the presumption that everybody watches those extra YouTube shows, even though I'm sure they're quite entertaining, for people like diehard fans.
Yeah. And the same goes for being the elite, like, oh, well, I mean, you don't understand the angle, bro, because you haven't been watching Beating the Eight. I shouldn't need to watch that show to keep up with what's going on their primetime television show. I should be able to get everything I need to get from the primetime television show. Anyway, away from that, the pie face was weak at the beginning of the match. There was a botch and a whip. Penelope is all limbs flying everywhere. And she hits her with a cutter at one stage. And again, I always say, what's with all the cutters? Sammy already did one. And she's
by
doing
the way,
one.
Just to quickly interject there so you don't forget about it, another instance of shitty camera work on that cutter on the outside. Agreed.
Commercial break. I kind of felt like the best stuff in the match was happening during the commercial break. The finish, Rosa chokes her out. But yeah, the women's matches just don't have any heat behind them. And even with Rampage happening, it appears that that's only probably going to get one women's show per episode. So people keep going on about, oh, well, Rampage is coming, so there'll be more time for the women's division. Sorry, I'm not saying it yet. I know it's only been a week. I will be patient, but I just think someone needs to sit down and think of some actual angles, character development, stories for the women so that we can actually care. And it's not just matches based on a challenge someone gave someone on one of their YouTube shows.
Like they need Serena Deeb and Sarah Del Rey and stuff like that. They need those top level experienced female wrestlers. They need them badly if their women's division is going to improve.
Yeah. Okay. From there, Arn Anderson backstage for an interview. He's with his son, Brock Anderson. It's announced that it's Malachi Black versus Brock Anderson next week. Brock doesn't care what his dad thinks. He's going to go out there and defend his father's honor. This makes sense. I just hope Brock isn't too green. I'm sure it'll be fine because he's an Anderson. And after he said to his dad that, it doesn't matter what he thinks or whatever, he's doing it. They cut away from it way too quick. What you want to see is Brock Anderson walk away, and you want to see Arn Anderson there. Just let it breathe for a second so we can feel how Arn feels about the situation.
Yeah, like you need to, exactly like you said. I mean, I just want to say for my part, Brock Anderson looks like an Anderson, and he actually looks like a man, and looks like he could probably kick somebody's ass in a bar fight. And so that is working in his favor. I like the idea of him being the impetuous son wanting to defend the honor of his legendary wrestler father. Like you said, there needed to be an extra bit of time at the end after Brock walked away where Arn plays the concerned father and kind of, we see him doing a bit of that, worried about the situation, because Arn cut a good little promo in his own right. He sort of had a very kind of detached demeanor about him, which made it seem like, oh shit, I've been put through the ringer by all this business with Malachi Black. He kicked my head off at my age, which means he's dangerous. There's nothing that he won't do. He kicked Cody's head off. Cody is my main charge. And now I find out that my own son, my flesh and blood, who's doing fine, but, isn't really at that level yet, has been booked against Malachi Black. And I believe that, he's in trouble in this match. Putting over Malachi Black very well, acknowledging that, yes, Brock Anderson is training to be a wrestler, but that doesn't automatically place him in the caliber of this other, much more established wrestler. Because a lot of times, a bunch of talent in AEW, it seems like, they trained and they spent some time on the indies, so that's a good enough reason to give him a contract and put him on the show. No. A good wrestler gets to be that way through experience and through putting time in the ring. And it was really refreshing to see Arn Anderson actually acknowledge that and bring that up as a reason to say, hey, son, not taking anything away from you. I appreciate the fact that you have that respect for me, but this is something that you're not ready for. And that to me, that got me interested in this match, because now I want to see, A, what can Brock Anderson do? B, in how much danger is Brock Anderson in this match? And see, how will Arn Anderson react to the fallout from this match, good or bad?
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping Brock bites off more than he can chew, and it's a dangerous situation. And
it should be.
Arn ends up in a dangerous situation as well. And it might even be great if, like, somehow this turns into Malachi managing to pull Brock away from his father or something like that. Maybe I watched too much Attitude Era. Anyway. Moving on, Miro cuts another, entertaining little promo, and it appears he's challenging Eddie Kingston to come after him in his championship. What do you think, DJ, of this, and what do you think of where the TNT title's going right now? Because his last two challenges have been two extremely green, small guys, so we need some formidable challenges, and maybe Kingston's the guy.
Okay, so Kingston is definitely somebody that I think will mesh well with Miro in ring. They're both very physical performers, and they both enjoy brawling and strikes and physicality. So that will mesh. However, the actual promo itself, it's again feels like more of the same that we've seen for the last few weeks, only it's in a different area of the arena. I'm God's chosen champion, and I have a hot wife at home that I like to plow all the time. Once again, same as the Carney piece of shit line from earlier on. You used that joke the first promo week that you did it. Carl and I popped and had a bit of a chuckle at it. Second time, we thought, oh, okay, it's funny. He worked it in there again. Third time, he just kind of generically made the same joke that he did the first 2 weeks, and it's losing its impact. And I think that, once again, we need to see them changing it up. We cannot just have Miro coast by for 6 weeks, cutting these backstage promos, and then having Kingston cut responding promos backstage. We need things to happen in front of the crowd in the ring. It doesn't necessarily have to be a match, but a contract signing, a confrontation, just something, We can't have Miro do this same thing again next week. He needs to actually wrestle next week or do something else. How many times
have we been saying that now, bro? Like, this can't be the same next week with Andrade, with Cage and Starks. And now I just feel like some things are too same every week, bro. But we'll move forward. Moxley cuts a promo, and, it was good, but this is something that's confusing me. Maybe I missed the point, but maybe you can enlighten me, bro. But wasn't it like a few weeks ago, Moxley talked about the Forbidden Door and wanting Tanahashi to come across and fight him or something like that? Now in this promo, he's complaining about all these people coming to AEW, like Christian, saying that he should have stayed retired. I think that was a bad thing to say, because he just beat your champion just this week. So like he just beat the champion, so he's proven that he can still hang. So, he's complaining all of a sudden now everyone wants to come here because, we're changing the game. And where were you all when, there was empty crowds and blah, blah, blah. And it's, obviously that
they were at home
and
they had visa issues and they were stuck at home.
Obviously the situation did not necessitate people wanting to join the company and perform in front of nobody. But I just didn't get why he would want to welcome Tanahashi through the Forbidden Door, and then, like, a few weeks later complain about people coming to the company. I just felt it was a little what's the word I'm looking for here? Contradictory.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. It definitely is. Again, shows a lack of consistency. We say it every week that one thing the company is good at is follow through. They follow up on things, but those follow ups that they do are not always consistent from week to week, and they can sometimes contradict previous instances from the same character. Again, like you said, Moxley comes and says that, oh, come over here for Tanahashi, come over here in September. I'll kick your ass. I'll show everybody that, you should stay on the other side of the forbidden door. And then that doesn't get acknowledged at all in this promo, even in passing, whereas I feel like it should be alluded to at least. And then he goes and starts talking all this crap about Daniel Garcia and how he's once again, he carried this company through dark times. Now everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon. Like, a wrestling company is not healthy unless it has a constant influx of new talent and new faces. So that's a stupid thing to say anyway, because don't you want to be in a place where all the best competition is? And then he talks all this crap about Garcia as if Garcia is out of his league. Well, Garcia effectively outsmarted him and beat the shit out of him while he was making his entrance earlier on. So obviously he's a little bit smarter than Moxley gave him credit for. I expect this match that he's going to have against Garcia to be a total squash, and I also expect not to give much of a shit about it. I don't really buy into this whole edginess that Moxley is trying to get across. If anything, I find Kingston to come across as a more authentic badass than I do John Moxley.
Yeah, they need to come up with something fresh for Moxley to do, because it's kind of stagnating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to our main event, bro. MJF Jericho is the fifth labor. MJF comes out. I wrote down, I think his entrance needs more pizzazz for someone as arrogant and cocky as he is. It kind of comes across rather dry that he just has the theme song and walks out. He probably needs some pyro or something like that, I think. Jericho makes his entrance. We knew it was coming. The fans sang along. The match begins. Soon into the match, we get a commercial break. And look, 2 weeks in a row now, I kind of feel like some of these commercial breaks have been very interruptive. Is that even a word? Very interrupting of the proceedings. I kind of just wanted to see this main event in full. I don't think they should do commercial breaks in main events, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe try and get them all done earlier in the show, but I think you need to leave that main event commercial free. I want to give a shout out to Arby's. Some of their shit looks good. Golden Corral, on the other hand, I think they try and make it look good, but it's probably just like Sizzler.
Yeah. That feels like Sizzlers.
Yeah, they try to make it look really classy, but bro, it's.
I could tell by the portion sizes on the plates.
Yeah, and I just like bringing up what happens in the commercials. But I'll just get through my thoughts on the rest of the match before I throw to you, bro. I like seeing the Lion Salt come back. That was cool. Despite his weight gain, he can still pull off things like that, and the Hurricane run off the top rope, which is nice. The clotheslines in the corner, don't like him. Slow and unimpactful. Take that out of your repertoire ASAP. What's MJF's finisher called? The Salt to the Earth or something like that?
It's the Salt of the Earth.
Salt of the Earth, right. I just thought the camera work was really bad during that, because I wanted to see the pain on Jericho's face, and I wanted to see a close-up of MJF, like really wrenching it. They did do a little shot of his face later on in the submission hold, but you want to see that right from the get-go. Another note that we both had was fucking people in the crowd, put your phones down. Just live in the moment and enjoy the match. Stop filming every fucking thing for social media. Who cares? No one's going to watch your shitty little footage. They can see it on YouTube. Put your phone down and fucking enjoy the match.
Like, if you're going to attend a live wrestling show, actually be in the moment. Nobody gives a shit the photos that you snapped from ringside, or like videos of yourself in the crowd going, ah, ah, ah. Just be in the moment and have fun. I feel like that's so often what's missing from wrestling crowds today, is that they're not, like, I remember going to all these EPW shows over the years, and I would be like excited all month for the matches that I knew were going to be on that show. And then I would be like watching Davis Storm in the main event, and I'd be transfixed on what was going on, because I knew that if I looked away, Dave was going to do something crazy, something was going to happen. You want to actually feel, it's far be it from us to tell people how to spend their time if they're paying for a ticket, I guess, but I don't understand why people feel the need to spend all their time recording the situation that they're in rather than actually just being in the moment and enjoying the show.
It's like all those fans that had their phones up in the air when Shane McMahon came off the top of the cell. I'm like, you're watching this through a little screen on your phone instead of just watching it actually happen.
You can watch
annoying.
it on a screen over and over unlimited for the rest of time. You don't need to create another camera angle of it. You are actually standing there in the arena. You should just be standing there wide-eyed, not being able to believe what you're seeing if you're really truly in the moment.
That's it. And the last thing I wanted to rant on, DJ, before I threw it your way, the spot where MJF got his ring, Aubrey grabs it, is trying to give it to someone at ringside. Jericho hits him in the gut with Floyd, and then goes for the Judas effect, but then stops at his tracks and then ends up getting locked into the submission hold to lose the matchup. I want to compare this to the match that Randy Orton had with Shawn Michaels, whatever pay-per-view it was. Shawn was not allowed to use the Sweet Chin music. And the way that they did that spot was like so many things were happening. Everything was happening so quickly. Shawn went for the super kick and at the last second caught himself and went, oh shit, I can't use it. That moment of hesitation was so beautiful because he hesitated. That gave Orton enough time to bang, hit that RKO and get the clean victory. It was a beautiful bit of storytelling that they put together. On the other side of the coin here with this, number one, Aubrey Edwards wasn't looking, so he could have hit it.
Yep,
Number
that's right.
two,
Because,
let me continue,
easy.
bro.
Yeah.
Number two, he had all the time in the world to think about what he was going to do, so he should have had at the forefront of his mind, I can't do this. I should go for something else.
Exactly.
That something like that should be happening because it's a split decision. And then during that split decision, you have to rethink what you're doing because you just realize, oh shit, I can't do this move. Not wind it up and then be like, oh, wait a minute, I can't do it. The spot needed to be completely different so that it looked like it was a split decision and then a second split decision to change your mind. He had all the time in the world to realize he couldn't do it. So I didn't like that. That might be nitpicking, but I don't care. DJ, your turn.
Yeah, I kind of basically echo a lot of those sentiments. The thing is as well, like the reason why it's supposed to work is because the Judas effect is a very quick, out of nowhere type of move. So by taking it out of Chris Jericho's arsenal, you minimize the likelihood that you're going to be caught with the Judas effect by surprise and pinned with it, which has happened to MJF before, obviously. That's part of the story. The problem with how they did it is Jericho went for the Judas effect against MJF and then seemed to hesitate about it and pontificate about it for several seconds. And it seems like MJF should have instantly been on top of him capitalizing instead of this awkward moment where MJF is scared that he was about to get hit with the Judas effect and Jericho suddenly realized that he can't do it. It felt like they were confused, but not that momentary lapse of confusion that can be fatal in terms of a wrestling match, you know? Like you said, the RKO and the Sweet Chin music are both very quick, out of nowhere maneuvers, right? Bang, I'm going to hit that Sweet Chin music out of nowhere. Oh, shit. I'm halfway through and suddenly my mind's caught up to what's going on and I realize I can't hit it. Randy Orton sees that Shawn Michaels is hesitant. Bang, he hits his RKO. Quick, smart, in the space of about 2 seconds, that whole sequence takes. Not about 10 seconds, which is what we saw in Jericho versus MJF. In terms of the rest of the match, everything else was technically relatively proficient. I thought Chris Jericho was actually moving quite well in this match. It didn't seem like he was laboring as much as he has been in these past couple of weeks. I think MJF is a great dance partner for Chris Jericho. And once again, I continue to be impressed by MJF's poise and in-ring presence that is beyond his years. I really think that he has potential to be the face of AEW someday if they build him up correctly. I agree with you earlier about your comment about his entrance needing a bit more panache. I think, imagine if you dropped these huge, like the same pattern as the scarf, these huge flags down, and M on one, and then J, and then F, and it's this big, huge event like it's royalty coming to the ring. Something like that, that is just an overindulgent monument to himself. That's what a person like MJF would want for his entrance. Instead, he comes out, it's relatively no fuss, no frills type of entrance. I feel like MJF is the type of character that needs to go obnoxiously big with everything that he does. But I'd probably give this match a B-. I thought it turned into a pretty good match, especially as it went along. Other than the Judas effect flub, that moment that we discussed before, I thought that this was pretty good. I am very pleased that MJF got a clean victory via tap out. That is exactly the way that you want to finish this angle, because you just made MJF into a more viable star than he was going into it. And Jericho in the long run will not be that harmed from losing. So this was the right call.
Yeah, I don't know. I still have a feeling that there's another match in these two. I think, to finish it off on a match on Dynamite, I think maybe they'll probably take it to pay-per-view for one more go around. But and after everything I said about the finish, I did really enjoy the match. I thought they worked really well together, and I'd like to see them have one more showdown in the coming months. But DJ, that is the end of our review. We had a lot to say, but even though we had a lot to say, generally for the most part, I did enjoy a heap of the show. It's just some things here and there I think need to be tightened up. So we're going to go with your rating out of 10, bro. We don't do a star system here, okay? We do a rating out of 10. So what would you say, DJ?
Yeah, look, I enjoyed this show a bit better than I did last week's edition. I'm going to give this a 6.5 out of 10. There was still a number of gripes that I had, but not a bad show overall.
Yep, I'll probably give it a 6.5 out of 10. There were less matches on this show than last week that were a foregone conclusion. That's the biggest gripe I had with last week's show, is that you knew essentially who was winning every match. At least on this show, you weren't quite sure with a few of them. 6.5 out of 10 for me, 6 for you. DJ, thank you very much for doing the show again with me today. We will be back again next week. Please, again, plug everything for everyone and where they can find you.
So you can find me on Twitter at JooseyBoy, JOOSEYBOY, twitch.tv/JooseyBoy, youtube.com/user/JooseyBoy. And of course, you can also find me on the WZWA Network every week, and you can keep up with what I'm doing over there as well.
Yep, excellent, bro. And for me, twitter.com/Karlifornia WZWA. That's KARLIFORNIA WZWA. That's the only social media you can find me on. Other than that, please check out youtube.com/WZWA Network, twitch.tv/WZWA Network, and find WZWA Network on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter as well. So anyway, there we go. Plugs are out the way. Thank you again, Juicy Boy.
It was my pleasure. Thank you again for another great watch along and review.
Excellent, bro. And thank you everyone out there for watching the AEW Dynamite review here on the WZWA Network. And we will see you next week. Thank you.